Welcome back to the Devils Rink Report. My name is James Nichols, Devils beat reporter via New Jersey Hockey Now, and it is the 2026 NHL Draft, and the New Jersey Devils keep the pick. And I know it's one of those things that a lot of you are probably watching, and it feels like a tough pill to swallow. So just before we get into it, though, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, guys, be sure to please like the video. Make sure you're subscribed if you're not already. Plenty more content like this coming your way. Um, and again, if you want to participate in the chat, be sure to do so. We have our super chat goal open as well. So if you don't mind supporting us here at Devil's Ring Report for the purposes of supporting local journalism. Let's keep it going here with the strength that has been this community. It's been great, but that's not what you're here for. You're here for the fact that the New Jersey Devils keep the 12th overall pick in the 2026 NHL Draft, and they select Swedish center Alexander Command. And I know a lot of Devils fans are going to be not thrilled that the Devils kept the pick. A lot of comments already. Tom Fitzgerald 2.0 with Sunny Mehta. There were opportunities to trade the pick, and he didn't do it. And instead, they take Alexander Command out of the SHL or Barrow Hockey Club. And before we talk about Alexander Command, let's talk about just what happened here. And we'll zoom the lens out even, and look at the bigger picture. Because look, yes, tonight is night one of the draft, but the summer is far from over. Um, but the Devils ultimately they keep 12 and they don't move it. It did feel like this was probably one of their most valuable assets to use in trade. I can confirm thoroughly that the 12th pick was in play all day today. Certainly the phones were ringing for Sunny Mehta, and clearly he didn't hear anything or have anything slide across his desk. That he felt he needed to move the 12th overall pick for. I know that the Devils were, inquiring about um, guys like Alex DeBrincat, except ultimately the Red Wings feel like they want to keep that player. Now, that's not Sonny Meta's fault. That's Steve Yzerman saying, I know that we're moving on from Dylan Larkin at some point here. But the fact of the matter is that we still want to contend, so we want to keep Alex DeBrincat and have whoever that new center that we want to acquire come in. We want him to play with that guy. I do know, I don't think I'm breaking news here. I know that the Devils did place a call on uh, Jason Robertson just to inquire on what the price is, what's it going to take. I don't think that they're not interested in Jason Robertson. It's just a matter of how much is it going to take to bring him to New Jersey, if that is by chance something they can do, and how much is it going to take to retain him as far as AAV. We saw that he turned down from a tax-free state in Seattle 8 years at 15 million per year. Um, can the Devils afford to make that kind of substantial offer? Now, you do also wonder, does he want to go play for a team like New Jersey that would, perhaps he would take a little bit less, right? Because he would be playing with somebody like Jack Hughes, who he doesn't have the opportunity to do that if he goes to a team like Seattle. It does seem like it's more likely than not that Jason Robertson is traded at this point, but as of right now, we just don't know where that's going to be. So certainly, I do think that the Devils are doing their due diligence on scouring this trade market right now, this crazy trade market right now. in terms of trying to find an upgrade. And I'm not just talking about forwards either. They have been sniffing around the Connor Hellebuck situation. They do have to, in turn, figure out what they're going to do with Jacob Markstrom if, in fact, they do move Markstrom. So before I go any further, guys, just put in the chat here your reactions to not trading the pick. Put in the chat here, your reactions to the Devils. Ultimately not trading the pick and drafting Alexander Command. What do you think of the player? What do you think of not trading the pick? But I'm going to continue here, and I do see that we're here, we're live right now, but I do see that the Devils are going to host a quick Q&A with Alexander Command. With the media, we're going to be here though. Daniel Lamoya of New Jersey Hockey Now is going to be there representing us, so he'll get the quotes that we need for future stories and such. But we're here. We are live. Let me just make sure my partner over at New Jersey Hockey Now. The okay, so your tweet about the Brinket was read on Detroit Sports Radio. If you're interested in that type of stuff, thank you, Album Review Channel. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, and that's the fact. Is that again, I know from a source close to that situation that the Detroit Red Wings would prefer to keep the Brinket for now. So that's what they're working with there. And look, that could change, right? The offers could come in later in the summer, maybe something substantial that changes their mind. They must do it, right? But for now, yeah, DeBrincat won't be moving on from Detroit unless something crazy changes. So let's zoom the lens out now, though, right? Well, let's talk about the fact of the matter that they did not trade this pick. Look, I did say, when the Dorofeyev trade went through. Now, this is going to be a tough pill to swallow because it goes to the Devils' direct rival in the New York Rangers, right? I think that Pavel Dorofeyev is an excellent player, excellent all around, and he's got a lethal shot. That's why you see him scoring 35 and 37 goals consecutively. So that probably is the kind of player you want playing next to Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt, right? That's a guy who you could see come to New Jersey and score, upwards of 40, 45 goals next to two elite playmakers. However, you see the contract come in at 7 years by $11 million, and is that the kind of contract you want to commit to? Where you're probably committing to Nico Hischier at about that number or more. And I think it's safe to say Nico Hischier's the better player, although Dorofeyev is probably the better goal scorer. You got to also think about the future here and, what's it going to take to sign Jack Hughes down the line. You have other contracts you have to be conscious of here. But, again, ultimately, the Devils don't trade for a guy like Dorofeyev, even though they have better assets, right? Pavel Dorofeyev, he goes for a first-round pick in this draft from the Rangers. That was later in the draft, right? It was, I believe, the 26th overall pick. As well as a 2027 first round pick. The number 26 pick in the 2026 NHL draft, the number 92 pick, and a conditional 2028 first round selection, top 10 protected. So those are, assets that are valuable, certainly, but the Devils have better assets there. And, 12th overall, they have 35 in the second round for tomorrow. And, probably some other picks that are going to be maybe perhaps more valuable and, like the ones that they got from that trade with Simone Nemec, where they brought in two more first round picks. Now, do the Devils want to use those first round picks on a guy like Dorofeyev, though, when they know they got to, sign him to what ultimately became a 7-year deal at $11 million? Here's my working theory. My working theory, and this is just a theory, I'm going to dig into this a little bit more. But the fact of the matter is that we're now, I think, 15 picks deep into this draft. And I believe the only player that's been in the rumor mill lately of significance, and if this player even is of significance, like I keep saying, I think it's time to think bigger, take bold swings. The only player that's been moved today that you can say was on the rumor mill, right? Dorofeyev is one, but another one is Mason McTavish. He goes from the Anaheim Ducks to the St. Louis Blues, right? This just came in. I'm just starting to see the details here now. Um, he goes from the Ducks to the Blues um, in exchange for a first round pick, number 15, and another first round pick, number 29. So, do the Devils make that pick, make that trade for Mason McTavish, somebody who struggled this year? You know, he's not necessarily the fastest skater. Does he lean into the strengths of New Jersey? He's a great offensive talent. Does he have the defense to support? I don't know that that's the player the Devils want to use 12th overall on or any of these assets on necessarily, right? So my working theory is look, all of these huge name players, we're not talking about just these small time players, huge name players that have been in the rumor mill. Jason Robertson. Now we have Zach Werenski, Kirill Marchenko, Dylan Larkin. All of these huge name players in the rumor mill have not moved yet. So the fact of the matter is that we got plenty of summer left here, right? And that's not to say that, the Devils have the wherewithal to sit there and be patient. Um, but, it does tell me that there are perhaps going to be trades that happen later in the summer that don't involve these top picks in the current draft. Now, we know that, Sonny Mehta weaponized himself with future draft capital, similarly to what Bill Zito did when he traded for Brady Tkachuk. Except, the fact that Bill Zito used his 2026 first round pick to get Kachuk. That option's not available now, but we'll see. We'll see if Sonny Mehta can make something happen. I mean, again, he probably not probably. We know based on his history with, being able to reach down in the draft and find good players that Meta probably has a good scouting report on command. There were other guys on the board like Belchets that he could have taken. Um, I think the Nikita Klepov was ranked eighth overall. He fell to 15. He was there for the Devils, but ultimately they go command. Think with command, think Nico Hischier, very similar, cut from the same cloth. And you wonder, just how good that pick is going to look in maybe a year or two. He's already playing in the SHL. Not this is not a bad pick. This is a good pick at pick number 12. This is a good player. Did you want to see somebody more immediate for more immediate help? Sure. But let's put a pin in that for a second and recognize that these huge name players who are or were available, or not were, they are these huge name players who are available. I mean, it's being reported that Jason Robertson is now being shopped. It's not like it's possible maybe he figures it out with Dallas and goes back, but they're shopping him. Right. Kirill Marchenko has reportedly told the Columbus Blue Jackets, hey, I'm not going to sign here. Things have picked up with Zach Werenski. Dylan Larkin wants to be traded. So there are big names out there still who have not been moved with the picks in the first round of this draft. And we're halfway through it, 16 picks in now, as we currently sit here and talk to each other on the Devil's Rink Report. So, the Devils have an opportunity this summer. Like, let's just spitball here. This is something I thought of on our last stream, or before going into last stream. I said to myself, these Zach Werenski rumors have started to percolate. What happens here with Zach Werenski? Well, there's also been reports that the Minnesota Wild and Quinn Hughes have not been able to make any progress. And I shouldn't say it like that, right? Maybe it's just that they haven't gotten down to the nitty gritty yet because he's been taken care of, and that meaning Bill Guerin, some other things for the Wild, but they haven't gotten into the nitty gritty of a contract extension. Yeah, sure, the owner said that we're gonna get him nailed down to a 3 to 5 year contract. That's the owner being, maybe a bit overzealous. Things need, pen needs to meet paper for that to happen. That hasn't happened yet. So let's just say we get to the summer and, perhaps there is some sort of deal to be worked out here. Maybe, there is a 10% chance, in my mind, for me, that Quinn Hughes saw what Brady and Matt just did and, really does say, why wait? maybe I do want to go play with my brothers in New Jersey. Um, that would mean that Bill Guerin has a decision to make. Well, here's another Team USA defenseman who is, by the way, the reigning Vezina Trophy winner in Zach Werenski. Perhaps, the Devils can work out a three-team deal where Werenski goes to the Wild and Quinn goes to New Jersey, and whatever the package is that Columbus needs to agree to this deal, which now we know is, perhaps not going to be as much as they would like because of the fact that, we know that he's not going to sign, meaning Werenski, he's not going to sign in Columbus. Perhaps, they get a haul, yeah, but is it going to take as much as, what it would have taken if he wasn't available? Certainly not. So, you maybe you want to see something bold like that with Sunny Mehta, and hope that he can turn this summer into one that instills hope in the fan base, and makes everyone believe that the Devils can move forward into the 2026-27 season as a contender. And I say that because we've seen what's transpired so far. We still have day one of free agency. We still have the second round of the draft tomorrow. So plenty of things can still happen. But thus far, you look at the Washington Capitals, they got a lot better. They have Alex Tuck now, who is signed for 8 years, who is an excellent forward. That's an acquisition that they just made for not very much. It took maybe just a draft pick to get him, and a roster player. But they got Alex Tuck in the fold now. They got Jordan Kyrou. He's in the fold now. Um, so you now wonder, is this going to make Alexander Ovechkin want to come back? Um, is that going to make Ovi look at this roster and say, I want to go compete because this team's going to be good? You certainly have every reason to speculate that, yeah, maybe Ovi's back, and that would be, great for the Capitals. Horrible news for the Devils. So that happens. Then the Blue Jackets make a big move themselves. They bring in Val Nichushkin, right? And that's, again, a deal that I think, all right, maybe it's better off the Devils avoided that type of thing. But again, they ultimately did make a big splash in Val Nichushkin, who is, by all accounts, if he's on the ice and not hurt and behaving off the ice, he's one of the better two-way players. You see a guy like JJ Peterka go to the Bruins. The Rangers, do they get better with Dorofeyev? Perhaps. What Buffalo's doing right now, moving Byram, getting fourth overall pick, and then trading for Zellweger. That's some crafty stuff that they're doing over there in Buffalo. Um, but ultimately, again, you look at this division, and it's ripe for the taking. Carolina, yeah, they're the Stanley Cup champions. Do I think that the Devils can't be as good, if not better, than the Carolina Hurricanes? Look, they have a lot to prove there. It starts with building out a deeper roster. It starts with bringing in some top six scoring talent to play with Jack Hughes. What are they going to do in goal? But the playoffs prove that goaltending's voodoo. They can go get, if they need to, a goaltender who is at least reliable, right? And be able to, with good structured defense, make a run, a la the way the Carolina Hurricanes did. So again, this division shouldn't scare you outside of the Carolina Hurricanes and the Devils, who go already into next season as the second odds betting favorite to win the division behind the Hurricanes. For what reason? Because of the pure fact that they have this star talent up front, in Jack Hughes, Timo Meyer, Nico Hischier, Jesper Bratt. You hope that Luke Hughes can take a step forward. So. The fact of the matter is, yes, is it disappointing that the Devils did not make a trade with 12th overall? A little bit, a little bit. Is this Tom Fitzgerald 2.0? I'd pump the brakes. We got a lot of time here, guys. We have a lot of time before the 2026-27 season begins. Sunny Mehta has plenty of runway in front of him to make things happen. Can he be patient? Look, we saw that happen to a fault with Tom Fitzgerald, so I don't know that he can necessarily be patient. Is he in a little bit of a bind from what the previous regime put him in terms of no trade clauses? Certainly. Has that become a little bit easier going into July 1st? Yes, a bunch of clauses shift into a bit easier to move. I know Brennan Dillon's is moved down a little bit from, I believe, a multi-team to like a 5 or 3 team. The Andre Palat contract is no longer. Dougie Hamilton, although I think they're going to keep him, is not an issue anymore. But certainly, guys like Jonathan Kovacevic, he has a full no move clause. That's tough. Um, we'll see what comes down the line with a Hischier extension. What kind of clauses is he going to get? Arseniy Gritsiuk, is he going to get a clause? But ultimately, the Devils don't trade 12th overall. They keep it and they take Alexander Command. So whether you like the pick or not, you can let me know in the chat. But here's what I see from Alexander Command, who they take 12th overall. He climbed rankings in a hurry this year, 17 goals and 27 assists in 30 games in Sweden's top junior league. He added meaningful production in the playoffs at the U18 World Championships, where Sweden took gold. 6'1", 187 pounds, left shot center. Doesn't have raw speed, but he can, keep average pace. Plays with a nonstop motor and a physical edge, and that's key, right? The physical edge. He's a relentless competitor. He's a compete kind of player, and that's something that you want to see. He's a two-way forward. He wins his board battles. He disrupts play through smart positioning, gets involved in the dirty areas without taking bad penalties. Defensively, he reads the game well, fills lanes, and looks comfortable against top competition. So that's one of those guys who you can probably rely on when you say, "Hey, I need at the end of the game to prevent them from scoring a game-tying goal. Hop over the boards and get out there." He's got a pretty good shot that's still developing, but he's already shown that he can produce in bunches when he gets the chances. So, a two-way center, a reliable middle six option. You think Nico Hischier type. You think, again, not calling him Anton Lundell. I think Anton Lundell is probably a 1C type, but similar to Anton Lundell, where you can say that Alexander Command is a 2C type as opposed to a 1C. So look, he'll be a good player. I do know that he will be a good player. He'll kill penalties. He'll take tough minutes. He'll grow into a secondary scoring option. Is he the first line center that the Devils need? First line winger the Devils needed? Certainly not. Is he immediately the Devils' number one prospect? Yes, he is. Maybe two behind Anton Silayev or Mikhail Yegorov. It's up in the air. I would say he's probably one though. I would say it's probably Command, Yegorov, and then Anton Silayev at this point. So he's going to be a good. I firmly believe he's going to be a good player. How soon can he be a good player? Maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years. Um, is this summer over? No, no, it is not, right? Again, none of the marquee players that we were looking at and speculating that they could move have moved, right? I should mention Matthew Nyes in there as well. He's another player who a lot of folks had speculated, could the Devils or could he just be traded in general? And yes, the Devils were one of those teams that many people speculated about because you go back to the deadline, again, two different regimes with Toronto and New Jersey, but it seemed like, oh, maybe a Nemitz for Nyes swap is an obvious thing here. Ultimately, Nemitz goes to Calgary. The Devils get the draft compensation, and it seems like it's going to take a lot for someone to pry Nyes out of Toronto. So we will see, guys. We'll see how this summer develops. Like, look, we're not going to go into the we're not going to go into free agency and see any marquee players there too. It's just not going to happen, right? The top free agent in Alex Tuck is now no longer available. Alex Ovechkin's not going to be there either. So you're looking at guys like, you know, do you call Sergei Bobrovsky the top free agent? Do you call Anders Lee, the top free agent? Do you call Uh, Geez, Vladimir Tarasenko, the top free agent, Mason Marchment, the top free agent, Rasmus Anderson, the top free agent, somebody that they don't even need. Again, lots of uncertainty as far as how the Devils are going to, um, you know, add that top six forward. Um, I still think they do somehow. If not a top six forward, perhaps they do make a switch in the goaltending department. That's another thing that, came across my desk tonight was that, the Devils were and probably still are sniffing around the Connor Hellebuck situation. Do they get that done? We'll see. It's not that Sunny Mehta has not made these calls. It's not that he hasn't fielded these calls. He certainly is. But he said we want to make smart, calculated decisions. And in terms of models, his models are showing that the moves he's made thus far are more valuable than, maybe splurging right now on one of these big guys. Maybe the prices need to come down a little bit. They certainly are exuberant. And that's why you're seeing what you're seeing happen right now. I mean, for Mason McTavish to go for two first round picks in the middle and end of the current draft, I understand that he's probably a safer bet than someone you're going to draft. He's already at least an NHLer, but he's got a pretty big contract for an unproven player. Um, Albeit a player who many question his skating, his speed, and if he can keep pace. And look, if he can and he turns out to be a great player for the Blues, excellent, but the questions certainly are there. Do you want to spend two first round picks on a Mason McTavish? That's a good pass by the Devils. That's a certainly good pass by the Devils. So ultimately, Alexander Command is a New Jersey Devil. So we're gonna get into the comments now, Sean, and Sean, by the way, feel free to just let us know if you want to do it in the chat. How do you feel about the pick? Are you okay with the pick? Would you prefer they traded it? Any of these players who were traded, did you want to see on the Devils? I mean, look at the field, who was already moved, right? Should it have been Dorofeyev? Should they have paid that price? Should it have been McTavish? Should they have paid that price? You guys let me know in the chat. Sean, you can let me know in the chat too. But let's bring up one of the first comments here. And thank you guys for being here, by the way. And again, let me just remind everybody, please subscribe to the channel. Please like the video and let your friends know, hey, we're here, we're chatting, and let's get this party going. So let's get a few comments here. Sean, what do we got? At Let's Go Devils fan says, I feel so bad for Sunny tonight. First big move, and the fans are eating him alive. Yeah, listen, there's going to be a lot of people who are not patient. They want to see something different. And I understand that from a fan perspective, but I also understand from Sunny Mehta's perspective, again, a guy who told everyone, we want to make smart, calculated decisions. Is it smart to go out and pay a king's ransom for Jason Robertson, who, yes, is by far and away the best available player on the market, trade or free agency? 100%, right? Next to Jack Hughes, that guy can score perhaps 50 goals. I get it. But are you going to give up the entirety of, mortgaging your future? Are you going to give up all of the draft capital in order to bring him in? Are you going to give up, Arseny Gritsyuk, Lenny Haminaho, Dawson Mercer, all in one package to get that guy? I do understand being aggressive. I also understand being calculated, and it just seems like, there is maybe a specific place that Jason Robertson wants to go to. Does he even want to come to New Jersey? I know he was a Devils fan, but we're not sure if this is a place he wants to come to. Working to find out. But so far, it does just seem like he really does desire going back to Dallas. They just can't land on a number. So it feels like everyone's evaluating their options right now, and there's no lead on it. Um, and as far as some of the other players, like Matthew Nyes, yes, he's a great player, but again, are you emptying the cupboard for him? Um, you know, I don't know if there's anything to the Werenski thing for the Devils. Will the Blue Jackets trade Marchenko in division to the Devils? I don't know. And again, it's all about how much are you going to be able to get these guys for? Are you going to empty the cupboard? So we should reserve judgment until the summer is over, until free agency is through, and we're on the beaches on maybe July 15th or at a later date. Is it disappointing? Yes. Is it over? No. So I would not eat Sunny Mehta alive yet. I just wouldn't. He got a really good return for Simone Nemitz. He made some pretty decent high end depth moves. I shouldn't say high end. He made some good depth moves in the two players they acquired yesterday, Declan Chisholm and is it Leonard? I'm Amadeus something of the sort. The player from Detroit. It was Amadeus. Was I right? Is it? Oh, Lombardi. Sorry, Amadeus Lombardi. Um, a player that a scout he texted me, someone that knows him from Detroit, and said, hey, this is a good player. He could be a bottom six scorer. He just needs a chance and he needs to stay healthy, and perhaps I think he led the AHL or was close to leading the AHL in points per 60 or something like that last year. So good buy low bets, and we'll see if Meta can turn these things around. Look, he's still got a lot of assets to work with. That 35th pick in the second round perhaps is valuable to another team. Could be trades tomorrow. We will see. But I certainly would reserve judgment. I would not eat Sunny Meta alive just yet. Thank you for the comment. Let's get to the next one. Sean Harrington, the man himself. He says, well, since you asked, there were better options, but I sense that the centerpiece of a Quinn trade, Sonny is playing chess. And I really like that idea. That's something like, similar to what Bill Guerin did, right? He just drafted Zeev Buium, but then he used him in a trade to get Quinn Hughes, right? Perhaps there's a similar type thing happening here. Would be pretty savvy. So does Alexander Command even ever pull on that devil's sweater in a NHL game? We'll find out. We'll see. But it's not the worst idea. It's a pretty good idea, right? Maybe the Devils know that Alexander Command was high on somebody's draft board that they're targeting in trade. Could be. So we'll see. That's a really, really smart idea by producer Sean, who likes to hide in the shadows. But let me tell you, he doesn't just make good graphics. He makes great ideas too. Let's get to the next one. Sean, appreciate you. At RME2986 says, should have moved picks for Dorofeyev. Rags got an absolute steal of a war percentage player. And so look, here's the thing for me, right? Yes, I agree. He's a great player. I am curious to see how he's going to perform in New York because he is a guy who works well with playmakers. I mean, he had Mitch Marner feeding him pucks this year. So who's going to be that guy in New York? I mean, they don't have that guy in New York. It was Panarin. He's not there anymore. So, who's going to feed Dorofeyev pucks? Now, in New Jersey, yeah, I mean, he had Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt, and I mean, you could see the 50-goal season happening in front of your eyes. I do think that Dorofeyev is an all-around really great player. He has an obvious elite shot, and I do think that that would have been a great ad for the Devils. Now, would the Devils have been able to beat that offer? Not if they were intending to make the big splash I think that they are intending to make. And I do have to continue to wonder and keep in the back of my mind until pen to paper is made in Minnesota with Quinn Hughes. That might be something that is continued to be sat on, and you wonder, not to say that they shouldn't be making other moves, they certainly should. But perhaps they know something that we don't. So yeah, I do think that Dorofeyev is a great steal for the Rangers. How is it going to work out for them? We will see. I think it would have been a great addition for the Devils. If they would have paid him though 7 by 11, then I would have had my reservations, and that's why I'm kind of okay with it at this point now. At first, it was the shock value of that's all it took to get Dorofeyev, and then the contract came through, and I was like, ooh, that's a bit much. That's a bit much. I think he's more of an $8-9 million player. And do you want him really making that much more than Jack Hughes? I mean, I get that, you have to go by percentage of the cap, and that's when Jack Hughes signed his contract, and he's going to make $8 million for the next 4 seasons. But it's, again, that's a player that once Jack Hughes' time comes to sign a contract, then how much is it going to cost? So, Dorofeyev would have been great. Would he have been great for that much in terms of assets going the other way? I'm not sure. We'll see. We will see how it works out for the Rangers. Thank you for the comment. Let's get to the next one. Jay Snow says we're gonna run back the same team again. I said this earlier. I know we're all eager. I know we want to see action. It looks like we're, you know, going to go into next season with the same team just because that's what it is right now. But there is so much time left. Day two tomorrow, trades can go down. then the rest of the weekend until free agency, trades can go down. It's not like this is the end all be all. I know that the 12th overall pick was high value, and you guys wanted to see it perhaps moved. Who's to say it still can't be? They made the pick, they got the player who is a first round pick. Who's to say that they can't trade Alexander Command, like Sean said? It's a great point. It's a great point. Just because they picked the player doesn't mean the value is not there. So, I again certainly understand the disappointment, but none of those marquee players have moved. They're still on their teams. That means that other teams can't make these deals happen yet either. So I would reserve the judgment until the summer is over, and then we make a total evaluation. Thank you for the comment. Let's get to the next one. Andrew Harvey 82 says, "Why not go with the tougher, bigger Canadian kid in Belchets?" I think one of the things about Belchets is that he has not had the pro experience that a command has already had in Sweden. And if you notice, a lot of the top players that have already been taken off the board have already had some at least NCAA experience. I know that that's a pretty big deal for scouts and GMs as well. Belchet's, don't get me wrong, huge body. He's got pretty good skates, and he's one of those guys who you can just see developing the right way with his sheer size. However, he did all of that. He impressed as much as he did in the OHL against kids who are obviously a lot smaller than him. So he still has a lot to prove when it comes to turning into his game into a man's game. So he's probably a bit more of a long-term projection in terms of developing, as opposed to Command, who I think is a bit closer. You could see him in 1 to 2 years, whereas opposed to Belchets, I think is a 2 to 3, maybe 3 to 5 year development for a player like that. So that's just what I'm hearing about why not Belchets as opposed to Command. I do like the Command pick over Belchets. I didn't have Command on my board of players when I published that, I think a month ago. I did more research into a guy like Command recently, and he was one of the guys who I thought, okay, that would be a pretty good pick for the Devils if they can get him, at 12. Ultimately, they do. So that's what I think. I think Belchets is probably a bit more of a project than Command is. Command is a bit more of a complete player. Thank you for the comment. Let's get to the next one. Cost Lacrosse says, "Have any insight on the internal team boards versus public boards?" I in terms of drafting players, I don't have any insight on that. Or in terms of trading for players, again, the most I could tell you is that the Devils inquired about a DeBrincat. He's not available. Have touched base with Dallas on what it would take for a Jason Robertson, but obviously, that is nowhere right now for any team. No one's close to getting Jason Robertson. And that's about it right now. That's about all I can tell you. So, but if you're talking about, boards as far as drafted players, that I don't have the insight to. I just know that the Devils did like a kid like Command. I do think that they also liked Bjork a lot, but he wasn't going to make it to 12. I did wonder about Wyatt Cullen. I thought that was a player that they liked a lot, but he ultimately went at 10. So, Alexander Command it is. But thank you for the comment. Let's get to the next one. RME 2986 says, "How'd you hear about this DeBrincat rumor?" I mean, I have been working in the business for a little while now, so you make some connections and you talk to some people. So as they say, per source. But this was a few sources. This was two, and so it's not just coming from one place, and it's not just coming from one camp. So certainly, again, that's how we find out about these things. You make connections. But thank you for the question. Let's get to the next one. R. Roma says, "When Jack asks out soon, don't be mad at him. Remember this night when the Devils used their most valuable asset and took someone named Command." No way this team makes the playoffs again. Listen, again, I'm going to say it. Let's reserve judgment. There are a lot of days ahead. Day 2 of the draft. The first round's not even over. We're talking as the first round is unraveling. I think they're in the 20s now at this point. I could be wrong. But there's a lot of road ahead of the Devils and Sunny Mehta for the rest of the summer, right? Certainly, if we get to September and we're in training camp and the Devils have not brought in a top six forward, if they have not, tweaked the goaltending, then yeah, we can have a conversation about how disappointing this summer was. Um, but I certainly do know that these are at the top of the list in terms of how do we get better. Like I don't think that Lombardi and Chisholm were just, oh, let me get these guys and let's just take a flyer on them. I think that those were calculated moves, right? Could we see another defenseman that we haven't spoken about this summer moved, right? Could we see, perhaps a forward that we haven't spoken about, like a Nason or Lenny Haminaho moved, and that's why Lombardi is in. Um, Again, two different kinds of values in Nason and Haminaho, but certainly still, again, for the sake of talking about what kind of package and what kind of trade the Devils could make, they have the assets here to make a deal. And the fact of the matter is that the free agency is going to be so dry with talent that there's going to be more trades, right? There's a top talent in Landon Dupont next season. Um, Perhaps the first round pick for next year is in play, right? Maybe there are going to be teams after that kind of value, right? The Devils have their first round pick next year, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that, but I don't believe that they've traded their first round pick for next year. Yeah, they have their first round pick for next year. They have the Vegas pick for next year. And then for the year after that, they have their first round. I mean, they have in the next two seasons four first round picks. Next three seasons, five first round picks. The Devils have assets; they can still make deals. And so I don't think that again we should sit here and say this has been a failure. Is it disappointing tonight that nothing happened? Yeah, I understand that. But again, and credit to Sean for this idea, something I hadn't thought of until I sat down and he brought it up to me. Who's to say that just because they used the 12th overall pick, the asset to draft a player, that they don't also see equal value in the asset that they drafted that could still be used in another deal down the line? Alexander Command is going to perhaps command some value, for lack of a better term. Right, so just because they use the pick doesn't mean that they don't have the value in the asset. They have Alexander Command now. They could still trade him. So we'll see what transpires. We will, but I certainly understand the disappointment, but I don't by any means think that this summer is over. Thank you for the comment. Let's get to the next. Steroid stereo design. That looks like steroid. Stereo design says Command sounds like a Coleman type player, the type of players that become fans, that become fan favorites. Yeah, that's another good comparison, right? Probably a better comparison as opposed to a Nico Hischier type. I think it's a spectrum, right? He can be a Blake Coleman, or he could be like a Nico Hischier, or he could be somewhere in the middle, an Anton Lundell. Probably a little closer to Hischier with Lundell as opposed to Coleman, but that is the kind of player that they are getting. I think he is going to be, if he again plays for the Devils at any point, he is going to be a player that Devils fans appreciate, that Devils fans like. You know what? Here's a good comparison. I think he is what we want Dawson Mercer to be. That's what I think. I think he could be what we want Dawson Mercer to be. Defensively responsible, hits hard, is a great forechecker, kills penalties, but also, by the way, he can score 20 goals in 60 points, maybe touch 30 goals at some point in his career. Not going to call him a perennial. Again, a lot of runway for him to develop. Will he even be a Devil? We'll find out. But if he is a Devil, again, they could still trade him. They still have the asset, right? They used the pick, but they have the asset in command. Um, if he is a Devil, then yeah, yeah, okay. He will certainly be a good player, and a player that I think fans will like. Let's see if we even get there. Let's see. We'll find out. Thank you for the comment. Let's get to another one. I think we got like one or two more here. This might be the last one. Utah been doing many things right lately. Yeah, I like their moves. JJ Peterka, that was a move that they made today, moving him to Boston for a couple of first round picks, right? didn't work out for him in Utah after 1 year there. He moves on and now is with the Boston Bruins. Maybe that works out better for him. But are you spending 12th overall pick on JJ Peterka? I mean, no, I don't think you are. And I've continued to say aim higher, aim higher. JJ Peterka would he have been a nice pickup? Yes, but not for 12th overall. Not for 12th overall. That's too much. And he retrieves two first round picks. I believe it was the Utah Mammoth for a first round pick in 2026, number 23, and a first round pick in 2028. So you're talking, you know, again, 11 picks later, right? I think that the Devils got a player that is more valuable right now in terms of trade value. I think that yes, would JJ Peterka have been useful for New Jersey next to perhaps a Jack Hughes? Maybe. But it's not like he lit the lamp this year in a big way that turned heads. I think it was actually probably a disappointing year for JJ Peterka. Um, I think that you know, in Buffalo, he was a 28 goal scorer, and then last season he was 27 goals. This year was quietly 25, but a big drop off in overall points. He went from 68 last year to 47 this year. It's a 20-point dip, and he played for a good team. It's not like he didn't play for a good team. The Mammoth were fun. They were exciting to watch, and they're similar to the Devils in that they're speedy, skilled, and his production dipped. So is he a fit in New Jersey? Perhaps not. Perhaps he's not a fit in New Jersey. Um, so ultimately, Paterka moves on. Um, other moves by the Mammoth. I mean, I like that team. They're exciting. Obviously they have Cooley and Gunther, and that's all fun. Um, but I mean, they haven't done anything that's been, you know, they haven't brought in any talent that is ironclad, top six or anything like that. And again, that's the nature of the market right now. They haven't done anything that's overzealous. It's good. Uh, uh, it's been good transactions for them. It hasn't been anything huge. They get the draft capital. They move on from Paterka. Um, other than that, I mean, that's really it. So we'll see what the coming days bring. I mean, the Mammoth are one of those teams who you hear. I think similarly to the Kraken, they really want to add a marquee player. Um, will they be able to do it? Can they figure it out? We'll find out, but they haven't been able to do it yet. So we'll see. But again, one of the things I stress, and I think that might be the last comment of the night. We got one more. We got one more here from Sean again himself. He's making himself known. He's reminding everybody, hey, you don't see me, I'm here. Matthew Tkachuk was traded in late July. Summer's not over. Great point. Great point. And who helped orchestrate that trade? Sunny Mehta. Who did he learn from? Bill Zito. Who made that trade? Bill Zito. Sean's cooking tonight. Sean's cooking. And I share the sentiment with him. The summer's not over. There's a lot of time here, guys. A lot of time here. And this could all come to a head in the next couple days, right? Free agency. Who are the Devils going to go get and improve themselves through free agency? Are they going to pay Anders Lee 3 years, $7 million each year? I mean, that's a big commitment for a 35 plus player. Are they going to go out and get Mason Marchment? I mean, he's like the top guy right now. Mason Marchment. Let's just look at what his numbers looked like last year. Uh, he scored between Seattle and Columbus 19 goals and 45 assists. Because Mason Marchment is the top free agent, he's probably, I mean, one of the top free agents. He's probably going to get paid. But do the Devils need to make that move? First of all, he's not going to keep up with Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt. He's not a top six forward for the Devils. Not the answer that you guys want anyway. So no, I don't think that that's going to be, a route that they take. The Devils aren't gonna turn to free agency. Sonny Mehta is smarter than that and say, yeah, Mason Marchment's our guy. Guys, I just don't see it happening. I think there is still going to be plenty of trade activity. And again, who's to say that Command remains a Devil? Who's to say that he's not part of the package that brings in that marquee player? Who's to say that the draft picks that the Devils acquired in the Nemitz trade are still going to be here in a couple weeks? Again, I certainly understand being disappointed tonight, but let's zoom the lens out a little bit, guys. What is this team going to look like in September? This is one night of many, many ahead that the Devils have time to make moves. I understand the disappointment, but it certainly is not over. It's just not. You can make all the jokes you want. Oh, Sonny was playing poker. He forgot there was a draft. Oh, it's cloudy in New Jersey. I wouldn't go there yet. I would not go there yet. I think that this is a different person. This is not Tom Fitzgerald, and he has time to prove us wrong. He has time to prove me wrong, right? Maybe if you're thinking he's Tom Fitzgerald 2.0, maybe you're right. But he's got time here. Should he be patient? No. But there's a difference between there being time left to get things done and being patient, right? If we get to a few weeks from now and there are deals that took place that the Devils could have done the same thing, right? Could the Devils have matched or put forth a similar offer for Brady Tkachuk? Yeah, they could have. Was he going to come to New Jersey? No, he wanted to go to Florida. Okay, it's just the way it was. It's just the way it was. Can the Devils still find their Tkachuk trade this summer? I think they could find something of the sort. I think they could. And if they don't, talk to me in September. But if we're going to sit here and say, that's it, we're running it back, guys, we still have so much time. So much time. Like Sean says, the Tkachuk trade, the first one in a few years ago from Calgary to Florida happened mid-July, right? The mid-summer blockbuster. Not sitting here saying take it to the bank, it's going to happen for New Jersey, but I think that they're exploring ways to improve this roster and improve it fast. My running theory is that Sunny Mehta knows he's got 2 years, not 4, 2 years to prove to Jack Hughes that he needs to build a winning culture here. I think he knows that. He sees the landscape right now. Zach Werenski not committing. Dylan Larkin, he wants out. They have years left on their contracts, right? Dylan Larkin a bit longer, but Zach Werenski 2 years. Connor Hellebuck longer, but again, these players who want out, Vincent Trocheck. These players who want out, they only have a few years left on their contract. He knows, Sonny Mehta knows he's got to show Jack he can build a winning culture here. I don't think he's going to sit on his hands. I don't think this was a sit on his hands type, move selecting Alexander Command. There's going to be, there's going to be disappointment that it wasn't traded. There's time. There's time. And Sonny Mehta knows he's got to show Jack Hughes there's going to be a winning culture in New Jersey. He knows he has to show him. So again, let's talk in September. Let's talk maybe in August about how the summer's going, and even then, let's talk when the puck drops and see what kind of team Sonny Mehta ices. We'll find out. We will certainly find out. Again, all that draft capital, that 5 first-round picks in the next 3 years. The Devils are in win now. Sonny Mehta knows that. He said that. Let's see what he does. Let's see what does. He have to prove himself? Yeah. First-time GM. We got any first-time GM needs to prove himself. I'm not sitting here saying he did anything wrong. Is it disappointing? Yeah, it's disappointing. But is it disappointing because he didn't do it, or is it disappointing because nothing was available? We'll find out. We have to reserve judgment yet. We'll find out. I think that's going to do it for us tonight. Sean, what do you think? Is that a good idea? Nod in the background if you think that's a good. He's saluting me. Thank you guys for showing up tonight. The Devils Rink Report 2026 NHL Draft live reaction, the raw reaction to New Jersey not trading the pick, taking Alexander Command, a player who in 1 to 2 years could be helpful. We will see. We will see how long it takes Alexander Command to get to the NHL. We'll see if Alexander Command is a Devil in the near future, or at all. We will find out. But thank you so much for being here tonight. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe to Devil's Rink Report. Keep it here for the free agency portion of the summer that's coming up in a few days. Keep it here for any breaking news. Keep it here at New Jersey Hockey Now and Devil's Rink Report for all of your Devils needs. We are going to be on top of all this with live reactions, breaking news podcasts, all of the above. Be sure, if you didn't already, you see these logos here. Sorry, I'm punching the mic. See these logos here. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You're already subscribed to YouTube. If you're not, make sure you do so. But go find us on those podcast platforms as well. If you don't want to look at this face and you want to have something to listen to in your cars, we're on all those podcast platforms as well. So find us there. Thank you for coming tonight, and until next time, we'll see you on for a free agency edition. See you for a free agency edition. So we'll see you in a few days, and we'll talk soon.